Well, hello everybody. It has been quite some time since I was last at a Rick Rule conference, so it gives me a lot of pleasure to come here and talk about a complete transformation of hot chili that has really occurred over the last 30 months under the disguise of a pandemic and largely broadcast and known by the Australian investment community. So over the last 6 months since we've been able to fly, I've been diligently coming over here to North America, starting to talk about a story which has dramatically changed. We're talking big copper today. We're talking about a consolidated land holding that has been over a decade in the making in the largest copper producing country, Chile. So in 2019 we signed a deal with a private landholder on our very low altitude project, about 250 million tonnes, open pittable on the coastline right next to a port. And that deal has propelled the company's resource book and allowed the company to get off of the canvas from a period where the copper price had deteriorated to $2 a pound, wiped out most of the copper developers in the world, but what it did, it set up a re-rate in the copper price. In a world where we're trying to electrify everything, copper is the central metal that will be driving the electrification of the world. And the problem that we have with copper is we're looking to increase the amount of supply by about 50%, increase a market from about 23 million tonnes per annum of copper consumption in the world to around 30 to 33 million tonnes per annum of copper consumption in the world in the next 10 years. And to put that into context, it means that the project that you're about to see that has been transformed into a top 6 global undeveloped copper project, first in line for production, we need about 100 of these over that time period. And I think that you'll agree that when you see a title that says timing is everything after a dramatic sell-off in the markets of the past 2 months, most people would be wondering why I didn't change the title of this slide. But after blunt head trauma 3 weeks ago, I had an epiphany. All will be okay. Things that drop fast also rise fast. And what has happened here over the last couple of months is setting copper up for probably a record run in the price. After reaching record prices, as you can see on the copper graph in front of you, I believe that what we have done is effectively pulled back the timing of that new supply by this recent market downturn. So I'll move through the presentation and focus just on some of the key parts of the hot chili story which has changed in the past 30 months and leave most of the technical information for our workshop this afternoon. So we've now transformed this company into a senior copper developer, circa 1 billion tonnes defined on the coast, a quadrupling of the resource base. What makes us very different is that we've been doing this for over 10 years. We're the most advanced of the senior copper developers in terms of permitting and time frame to production, and we're also the only low altitude play of all of the senior copper developers in the Americas. This is not a high Andean, high capital hurdle, 4,000 metre project. This is down on the coastline. In August last year, we had Glencore, the second largest copper producer in the world, third largest mining group in the world, also take a 10% stake in the company. And I think that you'll agree by the end of this presentation that you're probably looking at one of the most compelling re-rate stories that has not yet been recognised by the North American market. So when you're transforming a resource book and putting yourself as a top 10 undeveloped copper project as rated by S&P, it's time to clean up the book. Over the past year, we raised $110 million. We took a private discovery from nothing to a 600 million tonne addition in our resource book, invested heavily in resource drilling, started up a pre-feasibility to put our 2 large-scale copper projects together that sit just 14 kilometres apart into one consolidated production hub and get the scale that makes this one of the top contenders for global supply in the next 5 years. We cleaned up the capital structure, brought it back to an investable company, back to around 115 million shares, and we also successfully completed a TSXV listing. So at the beginning of this year, we raised around 33 million US, and what that has positioned us also is that we're one of the strongest companies in terms of cash position, not requiring funding until late 23 and fully funded into our bankable feasibility study. We also started moving on a reshape of the board with Glencore's investment. We also had the addition of Mark Jameson, the head of their global copper group, to our board, and also saw a very well-reputed name in Dr. Nikki Adshead-Bell joining as our new chairman. A complete reshape of the company's management team and bringing in a lot of very, very high and well-known names in the Australian copper development sector. At the moment, the company has been re-rated from around $10 million to about $84 million market capitalisation. That was about twice that, about 3-4 months ago. Most of the Australian sector has seen a pullback of around 50 to 60%, and what that has created is a very significant opportunity. This project and this company is around 10 cents on the dollar at the moment. We're sitting here with an enterprise value of around 45 million US, and what that really means is against some of the leading names, the Philo Minings, the Solarises of the North American market, which have been dramatically re-rated with the escalation in the copper price over the last 30 months, is that we sit trading at about 1/10 their valuations. I mostly get to the end of these presentations and people say there's got to be something wrong with this story. But I think if you join me for my workshop, we can go through the technicals and you'll find that we're probably one of the strongest position players in the sector. So we now have around 3.4 million tonnes of contained copper, 3 million ounces of gold, 82% indicated resource base established on the coastline, about 600 kilometres to the north of Santiago. So this is probably one of the largest size projects. We sit about 12th in the scale of top 20 undeveloped copper projects in the world, but most importantly, we have a very low capital hurdle project that we're very well advanced with. Grade, geometry, metallurgy and infrastructure are key differentiators. It's not just about low altitude, it's when you develop a project in the heart of infrastructure on a coastline in the largest copper producing country of the world. So the addition of Cortadera has allowed us to develop a super hub production strategy. We just upgraded our resource base to 927 million tonnes, which saw a dramatic increase in our measured and indicated resources, setting ourselves up well to deliver a large-scale pre-feasibility in the first quarter of next year. And this is the project that has done it. Cortadera, one of only 2 global copper discoveries of large scale found in the world since 2014 with Robert Friedland's addition of Kamoa-Kakula. This is the problem with the copper sector. So again, coming back to how I opened this presentation, we're going to need about 100 of these hot chilies to supply that additional 10 million tonnes of required copper metal. I won't go through the technicals, I'll just finish on some of the key points, and for those interested, you can come to my booth and we can speak about the aspects of the geology, etc., and some exciting drilling that's going on, and news flow, and exploration upside, and all of the reasons why one of the largest mining companies in the world has invested in hot chili. And this is probably the key reason. We've been absolutely jettisoned into the senior space. Very few, and in fact actually no Australian copper developers sit in this space. And this was a key reason why we moved to the TSXV, and we now have an OTCQX listing. You can trade hot chili in your own time zone. We are effectively following the lead of the last Australian major copper developer in Equinox, a company that was valued at $45 million by the Australian market, successfully transitioned and moved to the North American market when it had about 1.1 billion tonnes put together in Africa. And I think most people know that dramatic re-rate story. Within about 2.5 years of dual listing the company and financing the mine, that company was taken over for $7.2 billion by Barrick. So we sit well positioned as a low-risk senior copper play, sixth best grade in this class, and the only project that's sub 1,000 metres in the Americas. Again, some of those names that are valued a lot higher, obviously we're looking for a significant arbitrage effect as we disseminate this story through the North American capital markets. ESG fundamentals are strong, and we have a very significant lineup of growth catalysts that we've been delivering to the market on time and within guidance. But to summarise, what Hot Chili has been transformed into is a project that will come into production scaled at around 100,000 tonnes of annual copper production a year, around 70 to 80,000 ounces of gold production a year, 20 to 30 year mine life, and putting out revenues of circa $1 billion US annually. And that's very impressive when you're talking about a project that costs about half to 1/3 of what it should cost if it was up in the high Andes. So thank you very much, and I do ask anyone interested to join me in our workshop this afternoon or come by our booth, and I can give you a lot more information on the technicals. Thank you very much.